All right, so in the last couple videos, we went ahead and created we learned about shaders. So what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and make a snow shader. So what'll happen is maybe as we move the shader, the snow it'll show like snow forming on the top and maybe the ground. So let's go ahead and turn off this snow particle just to kind of conserve stuff. And we'll use this as sort of like a rock or something. Like these are like two boulders or something, and we'll apply it to the ground. So in our shaders folder, right click, create another folder, and just go ahead and call this snow, and then right click and create a shader graph, and we'll just do URP lit because we could always change it if we need to inside it. We'll call this snow underscore SG, and then when we go to make the material, just right click, create material, and we have shader graph snow SG. So I'm going to apply it on each one of these, and you know what, I'll apply it on the ground too. Let's see how that looks. And let's see, let's go ahead and open it up. So I'm just going to kind of adjust the size a little bit here. All right, so let's go ahead and create a texture 2D, and we're going to call this base material. We'll call it main texture. And I'm going to drag that out, and then remember we have to do the texture 2D sample, or sample texture 2D. And what this is going to essentially represent is this is going to be the texture that sits on top of it. So this would be like a rock texture. Maybe this would be some sort of tiled floor texture. And I think I believe we have a tiled texture, don't we? Let's assume that the world outside is also made of wood or something. So what we can do is I'm going to wire this right into base color. And I'm going to hit Control S to save. And then let's bring this down a little bit. And then inside of here, under main texture, I'm going to go ahead and select the wood texture here. So there we go. So now we have, ideally we do a concrete or some sort of like concrete tiling or a patio, a path here. You know, this is our front door with bushes and stuff. But for now, this is our base texture. We're assuming that this magical world that we live in is made up of, you know, wood. So let's make sure to save this as well. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this down. And in our main preview here, we can actually select this. Let's see. In our graph inspector. And yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right. And so because I want to see this in my view here, inside of here to kind of conserve space, go ahead and select your sample texture, or no, your main texture here, and then under none textures here, type wood, and then we'll be able to see it as well on our main preview of our sphere here. So I opened up Maya really quickly to show you the difference, essentially what we're going to be doing next. You kind of have to understand what a normal is. So I'm going to just make another sphere similar to what we have inside of Unity. And I'm going to hold Shift and right click on this. And then I think I have to actually have all the faces selected. Yeah, face normals, and then toggle face normal display. So let me actually lower the amount of polygons on this sphere. Okay, so this is good. Do you see how these, and if I click on this, you see how there's a green arrow pointing up on the y-axis? So these little green lines are the face normal. This is the direction in which the face is moving. And when we're creating snow, we want to think about where do we want the most snow? Well, we want it to go vertical. Like we want it to be more on the y-axis and less on the x-axis. And as we curve between, if we look at our little y and z-axis here, rather, that we're looking at in this view, axis this way, we have to think about something called the dot product. Now, a dot product essentially goes between 1 and 0, 1 being vertical, and then all the way down to 0 is the side thing. So if our value pointing up is 1 and here's 0, all of the values from here to here are going to be somewhere between 1 and 0, and that's going to give us our fall off. If it doesn't really make complete sense, look up dot product, do some research, and I think if you do the AI video series, I do talk a lot about vectors and stuff. But anyway, just a little bit of information. So as we're building this out, you understand that there's normals, that's the direction of the face on the plane, and that up is 1, and then 0 is across, and anywhere between that, we get a range. So let's return to shader graph, and let's start to build that out. So we want to grab our normal vector node, and this is going to give us that vector that we talked about earlier. Notice it's under geometry here, and that's going to give us the vector of the sphere. And so what's nice is you used to have to compute all of the math yourself, which isn't that hard. It's some simple multiplication, but they actually have a dot product node here. So I'll grab the normal itself, and then I'm going to grab a vector 3. And the reason why is it gives me access to x, y, and z here. And if we select our vector 3 here, and you look in the graph inspector, you can see we actually have x, y, and z values that we can input here. And so I'm looking to multiply this by my vector 3, or by my y-axis, because that's really what I care about, is the snow falling from the top. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to drop it into my dot product here, and I'm going to make sure that y inside my node settings is set to 1. And now you can see visually the white area here is where most of the snow is, and we get a little bit of a gradient fall off. So I'm going to hit Control S to save that. Now, something to pay attention to is remember in our Maya example, we had all these normals going this way. These normals are actually at a negative value. So like for instance, if I move my model down, see how it goes negative? We only want the snow to appear on the top. We're not going to have snow grow on the bottom. So what we won't have to do is we have to clamp this so that it stays between 0 and 1. So this is the input here, and then here's 0 and 1. So we can just plug that into here. And now it'll never go below, unless we want it to here, below those values of the min, which is 0. And hit Save Asset again. Now let's make our snow. Now if you remember in the previous tutorial, we actually used simple noise before as a way of creating like a fall off effect. But we can also use it to make it look like snow. And I actually have a lot of fondness for the noise texture, or the noise feature in Photoshop too, because I used to use it all the time on some of the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo Wii games I worked on. I do a lot of mobile development now for, as many of you know, bigger studios, but I really do miss those days. And so let's go ahead and just multiply this just like we did before. And really, this is a way of combining this with our snow layer. Our snow layer. And you can see now we can see how the snow sits on top of that surface. Now, what we can do, I'm going to go ahead and break this for a second. We can add together, I'm going to go ahead and just shrink these because I just left them open so that we could see them as we're going. But another way, we have multiply. Now, just to be clear, what multiply does is anywhere that's white, it makes it visible, like it clears it out. So that's why we're able to see the snow on top of that clamped area. We can also add these two values together. So if I go to if I add the add node here, you can see we're adding, actually, I believe that's the correct one. Why did I get only, yeah, oh, you know what, we probably have to adjust the color, but yeah, so you'll notice as I plug this in, we have here our snow effect, and then here we'll have there we go, our wood floor. And you can see now that we have the dark area, which is the black areas, multiplied on top of the wood area here. And then if we plug this inside of our base color here, let me move this and save it, we have snow sitting on top of our wood texture. So anyway I'm moving this around, you can see it's adding snow to the top. And part of that is because, remember, we're set to world here, and we did a little bit of that in the previous tutorial. If you're confused about world and all that stuff, go back and watch those. All right, let's see how this looks inside of Unity. So you can see here we have snow sitting on top. But we want to kind of control this a little bit better. Maybe we want it patchier, or if you don't like it, you can actually increase the grain here. You know, the grain size. You can make it bigger if you want, like muddier snow. You can see it updates here, but snow kind of looks patchy. We also really need a normal map to give that snow some height information. But let's take a look at how we can actually push, like dissolve around the edges of this a little bit better. So it looks like, it looks kind of muddy and grainy. But let's bring our particle system back, our snow particle, and see how that looks actually. Come on, snow particle. Oh. And it looks a little cartoony, but if we use proper textures and we adjust the sizes a little bit, I think it could look more realistic. But it's sticking, which is kind of nice. Let's see how it looks if we play our game. Looks pretty good. Whoa, this guy's got some major hops. That's interesting. Let's see if something broke. Yeah, something broke in our armature. Interesting. All right, well, let's try to finish up this tutorial a little bit. All right, so the way that we can control the intensity of our snow is we just add a multiply node, and then we can just wire this in here, and then plug that into here. And now, if we go to 1, you can see we can control, and this is also a nice way of like animating snow growing, right? Like you can like create a value that you can set in code or just in the animation timeline. So like, let's say we could do like snow intensity, here, snow int, and then that's just the float value. Boop, just plug that in here, save it. And now inside this snow intensity, you can control how much intensity you want in your scene, like this. But it would be nice inside the alpha if we made it a little bit patchier, like it was growing. Maybe we'll set the default to 0.5. I think actually this is good for now. We'll create something, we'll continuously build on it, but because like, check this out. If we go into our shader graph, if we want to increase the amount or the intensity of snow in our scene, we could just increase our y-axis. If you want to add snow to sort of like control the direction of it, you can do something like this, right? So you have these other values to play with. So if you don't want any snow, and then if you want to animate the value over time of snow appearing as our snow falls, we could also increase the intensity of the snow, right? We have the snow intensity here. And overall, let's save this and let's walk around our level, and we have snow falling. And you could do a fade in like in your main menu to give it time. And also, like, if you want to make this whole level like a big snow particle level, I mean, it's going to fall inside the house because we don't have a roof, but we could essentially adjust the shape so it's like something like this. Let's do 50 by 50. Oh, that's huge. Okay, 40 by 40. Something like this. And then for the initial emission, just like crank this up, do like 1,000 or something. And all right, let's plus play. Now let's say in your game, here, let's do play maximized. You would have like a load, some sort of loading thing here, and giving it time to load. And that snow is huge. Actually, it looks like our snow is not looping. It just looks like it's it's well, we'll have to fix that in another one. But let's see. Yeah, it is looping. Here's loop. Let's just see if it continuously falls, because I don't want it to die. If we, yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. I'll have to go back in and we'll have to adjust that. But for now, I think our start time is off a little bit. That's why it's. Well, we'll have to do that for. I'll do that in another lesson. We'll look into why it's not continuous.